Well, great. Now, in this part of the webinar, well, I guess before we move on, we did want to pause and see if there were any questions related to the last two studies that you all heard. So maybe we'll just pause for a quick moment and see if any questions popped up. I know Juliette was answering some questions in the chat box, but I wanted to see if anything else popped up. Let's see, I know that there was a question about Open Circle, and I know Juliette was talking about how Open Circle labels itself as an SEL program, but it's one of those programs that seeks to improve school climate as well. I see somebody else is typing a question, so I want to be sure we have time to get that in. All right, so go ahead and keep on typing your questions, and then we'll come back at the end and you know, can we have some time for that. So we're going to move on to our facilitated discussion time. And so today I'm going to be speaking with Suzanne Nguyen-Wisneski. She is the Executive Director of Federal, Bilingual, and Native American Programs for the Rio Rancho Public School District in New Mexico. Her current role includes leveraging various resources to provide a rigorous and integrated support system for all students, with an emphasis on enhancing supplemental supports for our most diverse learners to ensure equity for all programs. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for joining us today. How are you? How are you today, Suzanne?
I'm doing very well, thank you. This has been a very interesting webinar.
Great. Suzanne, maybe you can start off by helping to provide a little bit of context about your district so folks can understand where you're coming from and the kind of students that you serve.
Absolutely. So in New Mexico, we are a very diverse state in many ways beyond cultural ethnicity. Our largest school district is just south of us, with our largest city being Albuquerque Public Schools, and we just call them like the giant school district, but for our district, we're considered a large school district with about 18,000 students, and that includes pre-K through 12. We are located in the middle area of the state, and we have 18 comprehensive schools, 2 alternative high schools, and we are currently building our 11th elementary school.
Great. So I know you got to hear 3 different speakers and presentations today. Were there any of things that stood out to you today, or anything that really resonated in relation to your work in Rio Rancho?
Gosh, there were parts of everybody's component that really resonated with me. Within Rio Rancho Public Schools for over a year now, we have been putting a lot of intentional supports and resources in our district to systemically affect change around the way that we understand and interact with one another, which includes adults as well as adult-to-adult interactions, adult-to-student, all the different combinations within different contexts. So what we did was call this movement Each and Every. We knew that whatever we named it would be lasting, that everyone would associate all of the work with whatever we called it. And we intentionally called it Each and Every because it's broad enough to include people of all ages. And within that movement, we included what we're describing as tentacles, different tentacles. So culturally and linguistically responsive instruction, growth mindset, mindfulness, social emotional learning, and trauma-informed schools. And we are very intentionally presenting this as a way of being and not a program, because we also want to give our various schools the autonomy to adopt programs if they wish that are appropriate and relevant within their context, because our school communities slightly vary from one to another. So we wanted to recognize and appreciate that while ensuring that our adults understand and have the skill to support the whole child, first through understanding themselves. Yes.
That was very interesting, Suzanne. So when Rio Rancho decided to engage in the each and every work, was it because there were some particular needs that the district identified?
It was interesting how this concept was birthed because there were different components that were already in place or were moving forward before we identified this each and every movement. One of them being heavy efforts around reforming our secondary practices around grading and making sure that what we were doing was equitable for all students and that it was really about supporting learning and not just assigning grades arbitrarily, even if it seemed like all teachers were doing so standards-based. How were they actually practicing the way that we grade and assign different performance levels to the work of students? Were we giving them additional practice opportunities? So that's one example. We have over a decade now implemented the PBIS framework within our district with varying levels of implementation from campus to campus, and it just depended on who you spoke to at a campus and how they interpreted what the PBIS framework was. So just two examples there. Several others. My scope of work deals particularly with our English learners and bilingual programs, Native American students, and just broadly professional development for the district. So in an almost organic way, all of our work across multiple departments through both curriculum and instruction and operations seemed to intersect so beautifully to where we realized, gosh, we are all being responsive to the needs within our community through our scope of work, and we're all really working for the same thing. So that's how this each and every was born.
Yeah, thank you for talking about that. So I know what came out of, for instance, in the first study, Ginger talked about school climate. Maybe could you tell us a little bit more about how is Rio Rancho addressing the school climate? Maybe you could talk about some of the policies and programs that the school district has in place or plans to implement around school climate.
Yes. So for each of the different tentacles that I named, we have done an extensive policy review looking to make sure that our policies were truly in place to help support all learners. And just looking at the different components within our system that perhaps do have bias or anything that would make it an inequitable system for our students. And just really, it's just really important to us to not approach this as a program, but also to support our schools in maintaining their own sense of identity. That's been a challenge because some individuals may perceive that as you might not know what our needs are or how we support our students, but we've been really approaching it in an individualistic way to build understanding and knowledge so that people can be more informed when they're interacting or making decisions about what to implement, how to implement, administrators, how they can support teachers and also have a sense of accountability around the different ways that people interact with students and families and community members.
Yeah, so I think you were starting to touch on a really important point that people probably have some questions about, Suzanne, which is, some of the challenges of the work. So it sounds like, some of the schools are like, hey, we know our students best, like kind of why are you trying to tell us, what approach to take? So in addition to that, maybe were there any other challenges that you all have been facing and have had to try to think through?
Yes, one of the most challenging areas has been around people who want a really linear approach to implementing these different practices, and primarily our teachers. Our teachers are asking for strategies. Give me a strategy on how to support SEL. Give me a strategy for CLRI. And so the way that we've approached it is just consistent communication and purposeful integration of building knowledge around these areas through all of our professional learning sessions. We always communicate that these practices are embedded in the way that we behave, and that it's not just like you can take your lesson plan and add 10 minutes on Tuesdays and Thursdays and check off that you have covered SEL with your class. This is embedded in everything that we do all day, every day with our kids for all of the areas, not just SEL.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. How do you embed it across everything they're doing? It's not just, a check mark and we'll move on, we did that. I think that's a really important thing. Great. Is there anything else that you wanted to share just in general about the work that the district has been doing around this work as we approach closing?
I think really just to re-emphasize what Juliette had spoken to earlier, that it's about the relationships. And in order to have really meaningful, authentic relationships, we need to explore our own biases that we each have, so that we can better understand ourselves as we build these relationships with our students and other community stakeholders. And that it really does take a whole team of people in order to help support one another and our students, and that it can't just be left on any single one person or program.
Great. I think those were some really great words to conclude on. Thank you, Suzanne.
Thank you.
I want to see if there are any questions for Suzanne, or if anything else that you heard throughout the presentation popped up. I'll give you some moments to think about any potential questions you want to ask as we get down to the wire here. Any burning questions? Okay, so John typed, what are some strategies districts and teachers are using to integrate student culture, language, and identities into the curricula to support culturally relevant pedagogy? So I'm not sure who this is directed at. I don't know, either Wehmah or Suzanne might want to take a crack at this, depending on what you all, Wehmah, what you've read about in terms of the research, or Suzanne, if this resonates with something that you're doing in Rio Rancho right now.
Sure, I'd be happy to start. I can think of two specific things that we do in our district to support culturally and linguistically relevant pedagogy. And the first one is through some cohort work that we have been engaged in. So we are currently in phase 3 of that work. But the first one included three full-day training session for our administrators, which included school, building, and district-level leaders to come and learn more and build their capacity around CLRI. And then the next phase of that was bringing in key influential teachers to engage in the work to build their understanding. And then so now in phase 3, we're pairing up those teacher leaders with the administrators to create a plan of action to bring that learning to the school campus. And another way that we've approached it is through our instructional materials. So we've been really intentional about ensuring that all of our instructional materials are culturally and linguistically responsive, and that's embedded within our rubric in adopting these materials. And as we adopt and implement our team, we have implementation teams that meet monthly, and that is a key part of the professional learning, the CLR piece. Just explicitly drawing attention to making sure that the text we select and all the materials and the way that we teach it is culturally and linguistically responsive.
Great. Thank you so much, Suzanne. Okay, so if any other questions pop up, go ahead and type it in the chat box. I can see somebody else is typing. Go ahead and keep typing it. I'm going to move on to the next slides, and I can circle back around to it. We just want to let you know that I think we mentioned it earlier at the beginning. It's really important that we hear from you all in terms of what you thought of the webinar. We hope you heard some really good presentations today in terms of just the non-cognitive factors. You learned some interesting things and strategies, perhaps, what some districts are doing. If you look in the chat pod, we are providing the feedback survey, so if you could really just take a few minutes directly after this webinar and complete that, that is very important for us. So that way IES, who is our funder, knows that there's good people out there listening to us and that they are really getting something out of these webinars, so we really appreciate it. Also, if you would like to get more access to more resources, we have a website, and you can visit the REL Southwest website, which is listed here. We have a number of resources, such as an Ask a REL, where you can submit a question if you have a particular question and you want to find out what the literature says around that. We can do a search for you. We have a regular newsletter that comes out quarterly. We have some current and archived events, such as these webinars. You can go and look through, and you can hear the recordings of the webinars. There's some other infographics and videos. As I mentioned, there's the video for this, the non-cognitive factor study can be found there. And there's also some really interesting blogs. So it's a really great place to just go explore. So there you can connect with us by either emailing Lacy, you can visit our website, and you can also connect with us on Twitter. After this webinar, we are also going to provide you with the references that you heard today throughout the webinar and the resources, so that will be made available to you. And I'm going to see if there's, let's see, any other last questions that popped up. Let's see. Yes, follow us on Twitter. There's an email list, and I believe that's all. I'm just going to see if anybody else. Let's see. Chris asked, what are your findings on school climate and students with disabilities? That's a great question. I wonder, maybe Juliette, is that something that you've looked into in your research to date?
No, that's a really good question. I mean, I think this is connected to, you know, just that certain groups of students often report lower levels of you know, or worse experiences with school climate. But in terms of the literature specifically about school climate and students with disabilities, I think that's a really great question and something I'd love to look into, but I don't have the answer for you.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for the question, and thank you guys for the participation and the questions today. And we thank you, and we hope you can join us again in the future on other webinars. So we hope you guys have a good afternoon. Thank you.